express the views. They do not express the views of Chabad of Arizona or Smile on Seniors. Okay, mark this date in your calendar. It's not it's April the 12th, because the following Tuesday is Pesach. So it's a week earlier. Also, I have not yet chosen a movie for next month. Really, honestly, with all the sorrows going on around the world, I wanted to find some easy viewing movies, light-hearted comedies, just to relax and watch. There are, what is this? This Surviving Paradise is a really great nature movie about Botswana and the Kalahari and the wildlife, and it really makes for wonderful viewing. And it's on Netflix. Oh, you know what? Hold on a second. I've done something wrong. I should do this. There we are. Sorry. You know what? I'm going to start again because I don't believe I had it there. Cancel this. Hear this. Okay. So hold on a second. I've just got my screen go a little bit crazy. Whoops. Where's my Zoom meeting controls? Hold on a second. Oh, there you are. Okay. Okay. I just lost all your pictures. Sorry about that. Okay. Again, just to my disclaimer that these views expressed are mine and mine alone. They do not express the views of Chabad of Arizona or Smile on Seniors. The next meeting date is going to be April the 12th, because the following Tuesday is Pesach. So we're not going to have a session on that day. I have yet to choose a movie to review. So with all the sorrows going on around the world, I really wanted to find something that was easy viewing, light-hearted, a comedy, something just to relax and to watch. This documentary about Surviving Paradise is in the Kalahari Desert in Botswana, a neighboring country to South Africa, and has some really phenomenal wildlife photography. I often wonder how they do it. And it features the Okavango Delta in the Kalahari Desert. And I found this cute, mindless comedy on Amazon Prime, Beau Geste. It's an older movie. When Sarah Goldman, a lovely school teacher in Chicago, wants to please her parents, she invites her boyfriend, whom she believes will be the man of her mother's dreams. When her parents insist on meeting the man, Sarah hires Bob, an actor, to pretend to be her beau. The masquerade works flawlessly for a time and brings comic situations, but in the end, their lives are irrevocably changed. So I'm looking for suggestions for the next movie. So welcome, session 26. We're almost 2 years into doing these movie groups. So
respect. My name is Viviana Nieves. Same way it's forbidden for a man to touch any woman husband wants to. Well, dazzling teacher wants to tango with you. In the CD?
Cool.
It's so neat. This woman is tango. How can I achieve my goal without sacrificing my sacred beliefs? We're going to kick him right out of the community. I got big problems. Big problems can be such big fun. How do we convince people that a young, pretty chick dancing partner is just a young, pretty chick dancing partner? She should be dressing very modestly. You cannot even touch her hair. You cannot even have eye contact with her. If I understand that the communication from that dance tango, it's impossible. Why are you hoping that he sins? Is that working? We should be praying that he doesn't sin. Who is that? No!
So Moshe Yehuda, a Hasidic rabbi and amateur horror dancer, enters a big televised tango competition to save his Hebrew school from bankruptcy. There's only one problem. Due to his orthodox religious beliefs, he is not allowed to touch a woman. At odds with his wife and 5 kids, the grand rabbi of his orthodox sect, and Moshe's entire Hasidic community in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, Moshe is forced to ask a Catholic priest, a Muslim imam, a Sikh holy man for advice. Together, they hash out a plan to help Moshe dance in the tango contest without sacrificing his sacred beliefs, setting in motion a fun, passionate dance movie, heart-pumping and heartwarming. Tango Shalom tests the bounds of family, community, tolerance, and faith. One dance step at a time, Tango Shalom is an inspiring and joyous celebration of Hasidic Jewish life. An interfaith milestone. This is the first film in history that was a joint collaboration with the Vatican, a Hasidic synagogue, a Sikh temple, and a mosque, which promotes a timeless message of peace, tolerance, and love. Have we had this one? So it all starts when he can't pay for the rent anymore and he's looking for a job. So he hits the pavement. Along the way, he meets Viviana, who is Katerina Smirnov, a tango instructor who's just been dumped by the man who was supposed to be her partner in a tango competition with a huge cash prize. Moshe becomes convinced that God wants him to help Viviana and himself win that prize. The only problem is Moshe's faith forbids him from touching any woman who isn't his wife. While searching for a way out of his difficulties without compromising his beliefs, he gets advice from his Rabbi, a Catholic priest, a Muslim imam, and a Sikh leader. Which path will Moshe take? The film tests the bonds of family and community and the bounds of tolerance and faith, and demands open mindedness, tolerance, and unity between cultures and faiths. Tango Shalom is also an inspiring and joyous celebration of Hasidic Jewish life. Is it any good? This faith-based comedy has a good heart with its lively and sometimes funny look at a man with an interesting culture that's not often seen in movies. Unfortunately, Tango Shalom falls short in a number of ways that keep it from being a genuine heart warmer it seems to really want to be. The uneven script makes a lot of conversations seem stilted and unnatural. It's also too long, spending too much time on each part of the story. Moshe looking for a job, seeking spiritual guidance, rehearsing for the big dance contest, and even the contest itself. The viewer may easily and quickly feel restless and impatient. The dance footage from learning how to tango to the final contest doesn't add any drama, emotion, or sense that the dancers are improving, even though they seem to be working hard. A couple of subplots, like Moshe's brother's financial crisis, feel tacked on. There are kids in the movie, but they're not a major focus and have very few lines. The story and the main cast focus entirely on the older adults, but it can be a good opportunity to talk about staying true to your beliefs and values while you try to make your way through a complicated world. Entertaining schmaltz about the rabbi who learns to dance, just not cheek to cheek. Karina Smirnov and Josh Laniando find a kosher way to compete in the big dance contest. The story follows Rabbi Moshe Yehuda, a teaching rabbi who lives in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, and in economically tight circumstances with his 5 kids. To save his school, Moshe begins hitting the pavement, looking for a part-time job. By chance, he looks through a window to witness a tango dance class and the glamorous teacher Viviana from Dancing with the Stars, and invites him in. Moshe is a deft horror dancer and is intrigued and shows a few moves. Viviana has just been dumped by her regular partner on the eve of a big prize competition that will be nationally televised. She needs to win the competition to pay for her ailing daughter's experimental medical procedure. And Moshe could use the dough, but his faith prohibits him from dancing with a woman who isn't his wife. Here the narrative turns into a quasi-parable as Moshe explores the ethical question. Is it wrong to break religious law to save his religious school? He first consults with a senior rabbi, then a Catholic priest. The spiritual inquiry also takes them to a Muslim imam and finally to a cheerful Sikh holy man who helps him find a solution. To wit, if Moshe can dance with Viviana without physical contact by keeping an inflated red balloon between their bodies, he can technically get away with it. Tango Shalom is a broad comedy with a thick coating of the sentimental lubricant known in Yiddish circles as schmaltz. There are winking performances, insistently nudging music cues and familiar stereotypes, including waiting in-laws, Lainey Kazan and Renee Taylor, lovelorn youngsters, and Moshe's memorable dance costume, a cross between a Hasidic dress and a matador suit of lights. During the big competition, there are even a few welcome examples of legitimate tango dancers, showing their swirly contortions and illustrating the observation attributed to George Bernard Shaw, that dancing is the vertical expression of a horizontal desire. As Moshe is better with physical comedy than the verbal, the judicious editing of his feet, suggesting he's actually keeping up with Smirnov, a pro well known for her work on Dancing with the Stars, and the red balloon, while inevitably suggesting a more conventional method of avoiding skin contact, takes on a spiritual life of its own, having apparently been reincarnated from Albert Lemorse's classic 1956 French fantasy, The Red Balloon. Renee Taylor was born in the Bronx to Frida Silverstein and Charles Wexler. She worked as a comedian in the early 60s in the New York City nightclub Bonsoir. The opening act was for a then unknown Barbra Streisand. She earned notice for her portrayal as Eva Braun in Mel Brooks's The Producers in 1967 and continued to act in several films, television, and theater productions. However, despite an impressive 50-year resume, she's better remembered as Sylvia Fine, the overbearing classic Jewish mother of Fran Drescher's title character in The Nanny. Actress and singer Lainey Kazan first made her mark with her Broadway debut in 1961 with the musical The Happiest Girl in the World. That following year, she appeared in another musical, Bravo Giovanni. She eventually served as Barbra Streisand's understudy for the lead role of Fanny Bryce in Funny Girl in 1968. And when Streisand was unable to perform due to her throat condition, Kazan took her place in both a matinee and evening performance for one day of the show's run. Always the tireless entertainer, Kazan has contributed her talents to an endless list of film and television project roles. Perhaps her most talked about role is the hilarious mom, Maria Portocolis, in My Big Fat Greek Wedding in 2002. Interviews. I found these rather interesting. What was the most fascinating aspect of working on Tango Shalom? Renee Taylor. It was a movie about tolerance. Lainey Kazan. It was the first Jewish orthodox film I worked on, and I found it very interesting and fascinating, and I really appreciate the learning about the culture. Josh Leniardo, that's Rabbi Moshe. A painter does his art on his own. He is one artist who picks the different brushes, colors, and supplies, and then times himself to do a work of art. In Tango Shalom, we had over 35 different artists with different talents every day for 25 days of the shoot. Gabriel Bologna. I directed a horror comedy that starred Danny Trejo called Boston Girls, where I put my mother in as a cameo. It was so much fun, but I never had the chance to direct my father in the film. I was so grateful to have finally had the opportunity to direct my dad in Tango Shalom. His dad was the priest. I got to see firsthand his process and collaborate with him in many ways. I never had the experience before. It really was a full circle. I had the greatest father and the world's ever known. And yet, when I close my eyes and I think about my fondest memories of him, my adventures working on Tango Shalom immediately come to mind. Even though he passed away, whenever I watch the film again, seeing his amazing performance, I am reliving every single glorious moment, fighting in the trenches with him. It's like he's back to life, as if he's been immortalized. Tango Shalom is a memento, a scrapbook, a home movie, all in one. Ivan Passer, the great Czech New Wave director, once told me, a film is a living, breathing organism. Now I know what he meant. What was the inspiration behind the making of Tango Shalom? And how did the film go into production? Josh, being observant, I attended services at a Chabad house. During Purim time, many religious rabbis have a few drinks and start dancing like I've never seen before. Being a tango dancer, I asked myself, what if an orthodox rabbi got a message from the Almighty to enter a tango dance contest to save his school from bankruptcy? After raising some funds and having co-writers like Joseph Bologna and my brother Claudio Laniado, and having such talented director and crew who were passionate about this film, we went into production. Gabriel, Josh, the star of the film, came up with the original idea. In real life, he is an observant Jew and also a tango dancer. Honestly, he is almost like the character in the film. Pious, many children, and blushes when he overhears the curse word. And just like his character, he's got a great sense of humor. In real life, he too teaches an Orthodox Jewish school, although unlike the character who is a rabbinical teacher, in his daily life, he teaches physical education. What is the most challenging thing about making independent films like Tango Shalom? Lainey Kazan, raising the money. Josh, oy vey. We went through so many obstacles from pre-production, post-production, but the Almighty was able to rescue us each time. Gabriel, parking in New York City. How can cinema and films such as Tango Shalom change the world and have an impact on society? Josh, cinema can be a powerful tool for societal change in these times of uncertainty, pandemic, and chaos. A movie like Tango Shalom can hopefully inspire people to find more efficient and peaceful ways of coexistence. Gabriel, Paul Gauguin once said, art is either plagiarism or revolution. Cinema is no exception to the rule. In my mind, cinema is either part of the problem or the solution to it. Tell us what was the most interesting experience you had on the set of Tango Shalom in production. Renee Taylor, being directed by my son Gabriel. Lainey Kazan, I thought that the costumes were one of the most interesting aspects of the film. There were dresses and clothes to cover the body that were so extraordinarily designed. I learned so much about the culture through the costumes. Josh, the most interesting experience was shooting the film in amazing locations, such as Crown Heights and the Chabad Lubavitch World Headquarters, and at several other religious locations, and learning how people at these locations were willing to be part of Tango Shalom. In the process of getting these locations, we were already immersed in connecting with people of different religions, who otherwise we might never have met or learned from each other. It was an opportunity to dialogue and connect. Gabriel, it was truly extraordinary. Every day, all immersed ourselves in a different religion. And on and off the camera, we got to see so many different peoples and cultures express themselves and prayed, their customs, their beliefs, their prayers, their vestments. A pilgrimage. It was like doing a walkabout around the world without leaving Brooklyn or Queens. Tango Shalom was recently selected in a few film festivals and was even awarded. What's next for Tango Shalom, and who's your targeted audience? Josh, Moshe represents a man who really struggles with his community and family. In that struggle, there's an inherent universal message to a universal world. Gabriel, it's about time Borscht Belt humor goes mainstream. Judy Bleacher, that's Reb Moshe's wife. I noticed that lots of people involved in the film are related. Yes, Joseph co-wrote and co-produced it. He was married to Renee Taylor, who played the grandmother. Their son Gabe directed the film. His wife Zizi co-wrote the music. Renee is good friends with Lainey Kazan, who's in the film. Josh, who plays my husband and also the tango dancer, had the idea for the film. He is a member of Chabad House in Williamsburg. And one day he was there. He thought that what if a rabbi decided he needed to dance the tango? What would he do? He and his brother Claudio co-wrote the film with Joe, and who plays his brother. We felt like a family all the time. It was such an amazing experience. You are now working on a more personal film and an incredible story about your family. My mother was a Holocaust survivor, a hidden child. When she was 6.5, she escaped by crossing the French border by herself to Switzerland, where someone was waiting for her. There, then her parents, my grandparents, escaped from concentration camp in the south of France. Right now, with everything going on in the world, and with anti-Semitism rising, hatred of all kinds rising, I think this is a very important story. There's a very positive story. It's a very positive story because it's all about kindness, about people helping each other. Maybe it will inspire others to do the right thing and help each other. How do you want people to feel after they've seen Tango Shalom? I want them to feel joyful. I want them to realize that, that most obstacles can be overcome if you think creatively. Personally, I enjoyed the movie, although I thought it could have been better in the hands of a more experienced director and cinematographer. When it was over, I did feel joy and elation. With the goings on today, it was just the right bowl of chicken soup to soothe the soul. Just a point of interest. The movie started filming in 2017. It took 25 days to film. It was then stopped for 2 years by COVID. In that 2 years, Josh's father, the priest, passed away. That's the timeline. So my points of discussion today are the 4 bits of advice Reb Moshe received from the 4 community leaders of 4 different faiths. So without compromising his beliefs, he gets advice from a Rebbe, a Catholic priest, a Muslim imam, and a Sikh leader. Which path will Moshe take? Let's take a look at each one's advice.
A Gentile dancing teacher loves to tango with you.
Should be dressing very modestly. You cannot even touch her hair. You cannot even have eye contact with her. If I understand the communication from that dance tango, it's impossible. We should be praying that he doesn't send.
A lot of advice from the rabbi. This is the priest.
Sacrificing my sacred beliefs.
We're going to kick him right out of the tree.
I think everybody is. Hello.
Alaikum salam. I'm Imam Ahmed.
Why are you here?
My name is Moshe Yehuda. I'm an Hasidic rabbi. I can give to ask for advice. Okay, let's go talk. Other people, even my own, who not of a parent's house. Question. As a Muslim, are you allowed to dance with another woman? We live in modern times. Like there are many different Christians and many different Jews, there are all kinds of Muslims. In my culture, which I grew up with, touching a woman in dance is forbidden. Only Allah put the dance to the dance. Never do such a thing. It would be an evil inclination. But it could very well be that Allah is testing this person to see if he is observing his laws. We have the same thing in our religion. When God told Abraham to kill his son Isaac, I am sorry. I cannot tell you to dance the tango. I would advise that you not even observe others doing the tango. You need to look at your own religious beliefs. Come to your own conclusion.
Why? It was so neat.
You touch this woman in tango. Not possible. Allahu Akbar. I must go. My congregation is awaiting prayer. It'll be peace. Spoons. Alaikum Shalom.
And from
Big problems. Big problems can be such big fun.
okay, let's unmute if you want to. To me, the movie was chicken soup for the soul. It was a no-brainer, but
Oh, very.
those four messages in the end were really the crux of the movie and what I'd like to discuss. Yeah. So I want to open up by asking Rabbi Levatov, Levi, unmute yourself. Thank you. I showed those four clips of the advice Reb Moshe got from his rabbi, from the priest, from the sheikh, and from the imam. It seemed to me that the rabbi, the advice the rabbi gave was more like demanding that he do not do anything. Whereas the advice he got from the imam explained it better. What is your feeling on that?
Well, first of all, I was thinking before I even answered anything, I am very curious to hear what other people think about it before my own opinion. I looked at just from the parts that I have watched, I will tell you that it's like a La La Land video. It doesn't feel real to me at all. And the advice part is a joke as well. If it's not allowed for whatever reason, then the exceptions obviously don't make sense. So to me, the video, it's a movie that never happened and they don't portray it well. Also, they're trying to use, this is just nuanced. They're trying to use Chabad as the group that he represents, but they didn't do anything well on the Hollywood part of it. They portray the wrong types of dress and, to me, the whole video is the whole movie is kind of a joke. In regards to dancing, in all of the rules, I mean, it's very clear that those would not be the exceptions.
So, okay.
So that's why I was
Maybe.
hoping I would hear from others and then get some real questions.
Go ahead, Betty. Oh, Stan, go ahead.
I just want to let you know, we broke 3 balloons here.
Oh,
I read, by the way, about the balloons. I read that comes from Glee, the TV show, in their first season. To me, the whole thing's a joke. Obviously, you're talking to someone who touches very, I'm going to say it stands out in every single, for anyone who has met me here in person the first time, touch is definitely something that is one of the things that will stand out. Sandy didn't. Meaning if someone offers their hand to me, you know that I politely refuse with an apology. So when you go into the dancing part, it's like, who are we fooling?
I get it.
I think the thing is, you have to realize this is not a documentary.
Exactly.
No.
Because you're not
It's
supposed
not a
to even watch.
documentary. I mean, just like we look at Star Wars and we look at Superman and all that, this is a fantasy.
Right,
So-
Sandy, what did you, Sandy had.
Oh, I was gonna say, you're not supposed to even look at, watch. Isn't that true?
Watch.
You're not
what?
allowed to watch the woman dance.
Right. Anything that, but I to explain it, the idea is not to say it's bad. The idea is in the Shema prayer that we recite every day, it says you shouldn't follow your heart, meaning in the sense you shouldn't be turned away by lust. That's thank you, Dr. Cates, on that one. So the idea being that if it's something that can lead you astray from doing Torah and mitzvot, it would be something that would be frowned upon in Jew. In other words, it's, if you think about it, it's not a law that says don't watch a woman dance or don't look at a woman who is not dressed properly. I'm using all the examples that someone can insert. The idea is this something that's sensual? Can it lead someone to make bad decisions based off of their heart? That's the idea. So it's, any married couple who you see, nothing to do with religion, where the spouse, whether it's the husband or the wife, gets upset at the other for sneering too long at a woman or a man, which is not a religious thing anymore. It's because they know where the eyes can lead to. So I think Judaism just appreciates this idea that we are human beings and we do follow our heart very often. We kind of create a system to help us as a crutch because we're human beings. We understand that. The line that I've always heard is there is no one who is too big to fail. So we have Jewish laws that help us stay on the straight and narrow. If you watch someone dance, does that mean you're going to end up having an affair with that person? We don't have to jump to that. The idea is to respect the individual as an individual. I'm reading a book, or I actually just finished it. It's called Gift of Fear. And if you think about it, look at any teacher for dating. Like they want to help you be good personality to ask someone out. No does not mean no for a man who is trying to date a woman. She says, no, I'm not interested in you. So that person takes it as a maybe. Look, she answered, I'm going to try again, maybe in 2 weeks. That's our society, which is very interesting on that. My point is that in our conversation, these are in Judaism, in the conversation within Judaism, we appreciate the differences between man and woman, valuing them as an individual, and we don't objectify them, which is part of all of this. Maybe we as human beings do, and these are the goals that we are meant to not do, and these are the things that help us.
On the other hand, he did not lust after this woman. This was he knew she was an attractive woman, but it was not that he had any sort of sexual interest in her.
How do you know?
Well, the way
It wasn't in the movie.
Well,
It was money.
I don't know what
Because it's a
was in
movie,
the actor's
we know.
head. I'm telling you, the way the part was written, he did not seem to lust after him. He seemed to have a very strong love for his wife. I mean, he showed that in many parts of the film. I mean, from the time they climbed into bed to his joking before going into bed, I mean, they seem to have a fairly decent romantic life. So, I mean, her upset seemed to be more about what the community would think than what she thought.
Right. And by the way, that's definitely a good point to add into the conversation. It's like communal standards are definitely a thing in Jewish communities. I see that a lot. So that's like an extra little detail that they include.
I think he was trying to do a double mitzvah, helping his Hebrew school and children continue to learn, and also have this woman get the money to help her child live, save a life.
And he loved to dance. He that was in one of his inbred situations that that's natural to him.
When he asked the rabbi quoted something, and the Torah, and it was something in the Torah. What did he say? It would help others. Something.
I thought he quoted something from Fiddler on the Roof.
No, it showed the Hebrew letters from the Torah. In other words, to help other people. That's why he was more tolerant, because he was helping a woman and he was helping the Hebrew school.
That's what I said.
Yeah, but I appreciate that part. But if you think about it, the idea of doing the right thing shouldn't come at the expense of doing something that is, I don't want to say the wrong thing here, but at the expense of our Jewish values.
Questionable.
Right? No, that's why I'm saying. So in other words, if the right thing was to help this woman for her child and to help the Hebrew school, if this isn't the pathway, then there's going to be another option that has to be researched and found. That's how I look at it, right? This is not a life and death situation where 100% go dance the night away to make to save a life. This is not the life and death situation. So that would create a different conversation. It wouldn't be good for a movie, because then we wouldn't be talking about it.
Davey,
Yeah.
you mentioned that the movie does not represent Chabad, it doesn't represent Hasidism and everything. Yet the movie was sponsored by Chabad in New York. They're a part sponsor of the movie. So
I don't know if they're a sponsor or it means that they gave them location. No, I'm telling you what it is. They gave them locations to record. I clearly see the landscape.
But surely if the 770 looked at the script and saw what was going on, and if they thought it didn't meet their standards or whatever, why would they let them film there in these places? But I think they also gave money towards the film. They definitely gave money.
I highly doubt it. I don't know where I can look for that, but I'm sure they never saw the script.
What I find interesting is, if you don't like one rabbi's opinion, you can always get another rabbi's opinion. I'm serious about this.
Rabbi.
I'm not being facetious, because my father told a story in Europe that his mother had gotten a chicken. There was something wrong with the pipik. And she sent him to a rabbi, and the rabbi in town was not the smartest guy in the world. He went to another rabbi, and the rabbi said to my father, "Can the family afford to buy another chicken?" He said, "We couldn't afford to buy this one." The rabbi said, "Throw out the pipik and eat the chicken." So, I mean, so you can get that aspect of it, or you can get somebody saying the chicken is not kosher, period.
That's not, first of all, that's not a fair comparison. First of all, we don't know who that rabbi was. We don't know the real situation. But also, even if that story is true, there is a very known Jewish detail, and that is that we aim high, which means that there is a level between, let's say, the 100% to the 50% that is kosher.
Yeah.
And we set a higher standard, but situations can dictate to use a lower standard.
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean the chicken was not kosher. It could be it was not kosher rabbinically. I'm just using that example, where the rabbis instituted extra precautions, but technically it's kosher. So I'll give you the example, something goes into your chicken soup. You're going to find one law that maybe says don't use the chicken soup. But if the chicken soup was going to be used for a bris and you didn't have a way to replace it, we might go with a lower standard, because on the biblical level, it's kosher. The rabbis added extra precautionary stringencies that you find that throughout the entire Jewish law. We never go for the beer. And I'll give you the classic example. Is chicken considered poultry? Is it considered meat or is it considered parv? Well, in our dietary rules, we call it meat. On the Torah standard, it's parv.
Really?
But we set a standard because we are afraid that people will make that and be confused between meat and a piece of chicken, not know the difference. And they'll say, oh, look, I saw Izzy, he keeps kosher, and I saw him eating a hamburger with cheese. Really, it was a cheeseburger of chicken, right? And the one who knows less wouldn't make that, wouldn't realize that, and it'll cause other people to make a mistake. So we have a lot of that in Judaism, which comes back to our conversation about this whole movie. And that is, what is the reason why you can't touch? And let's say the reason is just a form of modesty to not lead you to the next thing. Then dance wouldn't necessarily be a biblical prohibition. I'm just throwing these ideas out. It would be more of a rabbinic prohibition. And then you have to start looking at scenarios. But I can tell you that touch is very strong. I think most rabbis would say, go find another way to get your money. This is not one of those situations where you'd say, put the book on hold. So I just share that.
So for the whole part of the movie about this Borscht Belt humor and all that, for me personally, was the 4 messages that he got. And in particular, the message from the imam. And I specifically included that clip as the full clip in the hope that one day you will see a Muslim imam and a rabbi walking and having a discussion and, discussing worldly matters or discussing how they would interpret any particular situation. I thought that was an important message in the movie, a very important message in the movie. Otherwise, it could have been a better movie. But it was fun.
That's not.
All about fun. It's
Yeah.
not about learning. If you want to learn, what's Jewish and what's not Jewish and how to live and why, we definitely don't find it in Hollywood.
This is not Hollywood.
Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Sandy.
Well, it was entertaining, but I just wonder also if the Chabad, like you're discussing it with us, and it's a good way to enlighten and educate.
Well, that's if you do the follow-up questions. Do you know what I mean? I think that if somebody saw this and thought that was Chabad or Hasidic life or whatever it is, they would be very lost and misled. I think that's a very true statement.
Elaine.
I did find it interesting at one point when the group of rabbis sat, when he was going into the dance contest, and a group of rabbis sat with the rabbi that he had asked as a consultant, and they said that they were praying for him to sin, and the rabbi said, I'm praying for him not to sin. And that's what you should be praying for. So it was an interesting philosophical thing from that point of view. You had people who were vehemently against what he was doing, and this rabbi was looking at a positive. I'm not saying you have to agree with the positive, but the rabbi's attitude, I thought, was one that you shouldn't be praying for somebody to fail.
Right. Elaine, did you want to say something?
No,
Oh, I thought you...
just listening.
Okay. So did everyone enjoy the movie?
Yes.
By the way,
To me, it was a fantasy.
whoever heard of winning 250,000 or 50,000 from a tango competition?
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
quite possible.
Oh, yeah.
Sure,
Yep, very possible.
Oh,
sure.
Very possible.
I don't know. Find one for me. That's the one we should all go and watch in person.
Or you want to participate?
Participate, we'll never get into that qualifying round if we're giving out that much money.
Rabbi couldn't participate.
I think you should look at this as a fantasy, you know.
Yeah,
It's a
exactly.
it's a hopeful experience that people would, you know, that the rabbi would try to search for answers, you know. And that really what it shows is that we are all human and we are, you know, rather imperfect.
One of the things that you can see is a negative thing. Those two guys out there watching him dance.
Oh, yeah.
They were
Yeah.
spending their lives trying to figure out how someone was doing something wrong. And they were very pleased when they saw something they thought was wrong. And the idea of looking at something and being pleased about failure is not a Jewish way. It was a negative thing. And of all the things that were going on, that was the nastiest. The reason for them watching wasn't either positive, you know, it was a completely negative reason. I want to be sure this guy is lousy, and I want to prove it. And this is not the kind of guy I would like to go to dinner with.
Yeah, but that head rabbi kind of countered that with his statement about you should be praying for them not to sin. He sort of countered that whole attitude.
Yeah, but they invited them to the wedding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they thanked them for being invited to the wedding, which is redeeming.
That's a turnaround. Yeah. No, the whole idea is that they spent all of their positive time looking for negative things. You know, they were wasting their time.
Unfortunately, there are a lot of people like that.
Yep.
So the movie was picked up by quite a number of Jewish film festivals around the world. And it did have a very short stay in the theaters. You know, it was something, but it was an amateurish movie. But for me, as I said, chicken soup for the soul. Particularly what's going on around the world today.
I agree.
This is the reason I've had trouble picking up another movie for next month.
Well, what was the chicken soup part? I'm just curious, meaning that
Well, chicken soup
Mom
part,
and the
no.
rabbi were getting along, or
No,
or
it
that they
made me
wanted a
feel-
competition?
I didn't have to think too much. I enjoyed it. I smiled. And that's chicken
There's
soup
a
for the
happy
soul.
ending.
Yeah.
All movies
And-
in Hollywood have a happy ending.
No,
No.
Not all.
Well,
That's why it's a fantasy.
maybe.
right.
Don't lose sight of it.
And
Remember, they didn't win a regular prize. They won a special prize. They didn't come in first or the third. There was a
right.
special thing created for them.
Creative, right, because they use the balloon as.
Right.
Yeah.
Ingenuity.
I'm looking for a larger balloon right now.
Yeah.
Well, you said you popped 3. It's not about larger. You just need better quality.
That's right.
Okay. There you go.
Yeah, and the idea of the balloon being God was sort of, yeah.
Well, come on, that was sort of simplistic. I agree with you. That was rather-
Well,
You know,
I
it's a
thought-
simplistic story. It's a simplistic story,
Really?
you know.
well, it says that there are 3 partners in a marriage: a husband, the wife,
God.
and
Yeah.
God. So maybe they
Right.
took that out of that kind of playbook. But
I thought it was the husband.
right.
Maybe I thought it was the husband, the wife, and the mother-in-law.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's the real.
Yeah, that's the.
And
that's
the,
Mother-in-law.
You know,
Oh, the
for me,
mother-in-law
I like the
is
scene. I like the scene where he slow dances in front of the black neighborhood,
Yeah.
and they suddenly realize that this guy really knows what he's doing.
he's
This guy
human.
really,
He's
this guy
got,
Even though he doesn't look like us, doesn't you know, talk like us, but he moves like us. And that was an interesting, I thought that was hopeful.
I'm sure there's a place that says dance unites all people.
Music does.
Well, now we have dance.
Yeah, yeah.
But that, that doesn't mean, it doesn't mean it has to be through the tango.
Can I ask you a question? When you have a couple
Yeah.
people dancing with a man and a woman dancing with a handkerchief between them, is that legit? Or is that only with a husband and wife? Or is that, we see that at weddings, what is the rule on that as from a Hasidic point of
By the
view?
way, that's a great question. Izzy, we should have had a clip for that. Before I answer that one, I just wanted to share, because on the dance where you said like in front of the Black community, there are video clips in Manhattan of young students who are just, I don't know how they end up in a breakdancing competition. Like they're walking by a Black breakdancing fun and they go and do their dance, you know what I mean? But that's not between genders. But I'm just sharing again, going back to where dancing kind of unifies and unites. I didn't say if it's right or wrong. I'm just sharing it's actual, not Hollywood or
Actually
film
happened.
festival. Yeah. The mitzvah tants is what you're referring to. And I have never been to one. That's very Hasidic oriented in specific neighborhoods and communities. But it's typically two people. It's the husband and wife, so the bride and groom kind of doing, and it's usually either the Rabbi. Again, it's not a Chabad thing, so I haven't really been there. And there's a mitzvah to bring joy to the new bride and groom. So that's part of this dance, is to make them joyful. So where does that come from? In the Talmud, it shares that there were 3 different rabbis that at weddings, they would dance with different things to make the couple happy. One of them danced, it says, with myrtle branches. The Talmud brings 3 different rabbis. This is how they made the couple joyous. So the mitzvah tants, I guess, has to do with that as well, making them joyous, dancing with them. But I don't think everyone danced with the bride. I think it's specifically
Just the husband and wife.
but again, they're not touching in public. So either they use a white handkerchief or a gartel, which is the kind of the belt. But I honestly, we could do a quick Google and see who is eligible to dance with the bride in those dances. I don't know. I always thought it's family. I don't think it's strangers.
It's a woman, other women.
No. It's men. There's some very, huge crowds that come to these things. You can watch them on YouTube. So if you Google it on YouTube, it's called the mitzvah dance.
Mm-hmm.
Someone on chairs, held up on the chairs, and they're holding a handkerchief between them.
No, that's just for fun. That's not. I'm talking about the Hasidic group ones. If you Google it, you'll see
Hasidic groups. Hasidic groups.
mitzvah dance. I mean, if you want to find a video.
They could have used a handkerchief. It wouldn't have been as photogenic and as unusual than to use the balloon. The balloon was very creative. So it added more to the movie. If they just use a handkerchief, it would be boring.
And besides, the sick guy was holding the balloon and gave it to him when he left. And it was his creativity, ingenuity that saw the balloon and thought of a different way to use it.
Right.
And they
To solve this
connected it up.
problem.
They connected it up with the reference to the old movie about the red balloon.